I'm going to take a look at a couple of examples here of how we graph out functions, and I'm going to look at particularly in vertex form, and then we'll look in factored form as well as to how that works. If you have something in general form, most often we're going to be using Desmos to do that, but you can also use a table of values as we did in one of those first examples before we even started with the description of quadratics. So remember that vertex form is ax minus h squared minus 2, minus k, plus k, where hk is the vertex. Okay, so that's one of the important points that we want to take a look at. Hk is the vertex. Now, the h is going to be actually changed. So we're going to have a vertex of 4, negative 2 is going to be our vertex, which is 4, negative 2 is right here. Okay, 4, negative 2, that's our vertex. We need to make sure we label that point. Okay, it comes out of our equation, okay, the 4 and the negative 2. Remember, we switch this sign, we leave that sign exactly the way that it is. Okay. Now, to figure out what our graph is going to look like, we can use our a value. Okay, our a value is 2, meaning that if we go up 2, our next points are going to be over one spot. So we're going to actually have our x-intercepts 5, 0, and 3, 0. Okay, those are going to be the next ones, and then the rest of the points will look something similar to that. So our graph is going to come up from here, and it's going to go through there and then continue to go upwards, and we make sure to put arrows on there, and then here, and it's going to continue to go upward as well. Okay, and that's going to be our graph. This is y is equal to 2x minus 4 squared minus 2. There's our graph right there. We have arrowheads on there. We've made sure to label everything else. Now you'll notice here that I've labeled the x-intercepts. They happen to be really nice points. Sorry, I'm going to put this in here so we have a little arrow. A is 2, so we're going to go up 2, and then we go over 1 to both sides, and that gives us our next points. I've labeled the x-intercepts as they're there, but you'll notice here that my y-intercept is definitely off the graph, so I'm not going to label the y-intercept. It's not really feasible at this time because of the way that it is. All right, axis of symmetry is right here. Always need to make sure we label that. It does not have to be labeled as axis of symmetry, but it needs to be labeled as x is equal to 4. Okay, it's the same as the vertex, so we're always going to label that right there. And everything else, yes, the last thing we want to make sure we label is our domain and range. Okay, and we're going to go through some more practice with this in our next lesson. But for now, domain, all x values are possible, so x is a part of all real numbers. Okay, so it just means x is a part of all real numbers. We went through that in linear inequalities, and we'll go through it again in a little bit later unit, or a little bit later lesson. Range. Okay, all y values that are possible, we're going from here up. So the y is just going to be greater than or equal to negative 2. That's going to be our range. And again, don't worry too much about that right now, but we will go through that in a later lesson.